Welcome back to TIP TV Politics Inside Europe. We're in the heart of the European Parliament. Let's start with talk about the realistic timeline, Marco, regarding this negotiations. 2 years is the period we've got after Article 50. Is that realistic?
Yes, it's clear that the period of negotiation will be 2 years, so we will end up with a deal or no deal at the end of March 2019.
What's more likely for you, do you think?
The 2 years timeline. I think that now it's a little bit complicated to see if there will be a deal in 2019 or not. It's a negotiation game with 3/10 by both the sides, and it's pretty much complicated. I think that reaching a deal in 2019 will be the better option for both the sides, so for the UK.
Is it going to be possible, actually possible in 2 years to go through that whole renegotiation?
No, that's clear that you cannot fix all the issues in just 2 years. So there will be a transitional agreement, and that's what Theresa May stated in the Brexit letter to the EU. They are open, so UK government is open to negotiate also a transitional deal to fix or to have more time after the 2 years Article 50 process in order to fix all the important issues to be discussed. So I think that the timeline will be 2 years for the Article 50 negotiations, so end up with a deal or no deal by March 2019. Then if you have a deal, there will be a transitional period to fix all the other issues. If there will be no deal, Theresa May stated clearly that they will use the regulation that is still in place as the WTO framework for trades, or complying with some European Union rules, for example, for financial services.
Sure. Gerolf, do you agree with that? 2 years isn't enough, it's going to be a transitional deal. I mean, if you have a look, the average negotiation to join the EU takes 7 years. And the EU-Canada Comprehensive Economic Trade and Trade Agreement took 7 years as well. 2 years is just completely unrealistic.
Well, we'll have to find a technical solution for that. But what is for sure, before the next European elections, the Brits will be out. And no Brits will be in the European Parliament anymore. And the deal will be drawn up, the first deal, or the major deal, I could say, will be drawn up by Mr. Barnier in the name of the Commission. But I have to warn the British for serious problems with the rest of the European institutions. There has been said now and established now that Verhofstadt will make a deal in the name of the European Parliament. He introduced a resolution next week here now in which some scandalous measures are proposed towards the Brits. For instance, they are even forbidden to negotiate with third parties in trade matters before the end of the process, which is not, of course, is madness. Brits should be allowed to negotiate in the meantime, preparing their exit, etc. Other things like the financial deal, things that Verhofstadt put in his resolution already now show that there is a lot of revenge and a lot of emotions in what in the European Parliament is considered to be a sad day, a terrible thing, and we are going to save the people that voted for Remain, etc.
Well, let's just bring in Stephen.
It's almost religious, I warn you.
Stephen, is that madness, do you think?
I think it is madness if anyone wants to try and stop us leaving and puts in such obstacles that they think that the deal will collapse. Because I think everybody on this table, from all the different political parties and the people that I speak to here, really want to have a sensible approach, apart from the few who see it as a real political weapon. And what they want is to have some sort of arrangement in place between the European Union, which safeguards jobs, health, opportunities on trade, and keep friendly relationships going forward. And of course, they both know that if Europe is going to increase growth, and it still has some parts of the Eurozone which are not doing so, and has the trade balances and the huge sales of European goods into the UK and vice versa, to keep them going, we need to have those friendly relationships. So whilst Verhofstadt is out there pontificating and doing so, I think at the end of the day, you'll see the sensible heads that you've got at this table taking the way forward. I do hope so, Paul. I really
Paul,
do.
why don't you come in here?
Would have the last word. That's what's now in the resolution.
It's what Gerolf wants to read, I believe. So the resolution is not very specific. But what makes the whole negotiation more complicated, much more complex and time-consuming, is the choice by the May government. They didn't want to take part in the internal market, that's a clear choice, but they don't want even to take part in the customs union and then go to a free trade arrangement. And even negotiating a free trade arrangement like CETA we have with the EU and Canada, it took about 7 years. So this is a very complex, and I'm very worried about the choices by the May government. Not being part of the customs union will hurt the ordinary industry in Great Britain. The car industry, for example. I find it incomprehensible, and I would say irresponsible, that for the sake of taking back control, apparently, you all go all the way to a free trade arrangement. This is one of the complicating factors. It's very time-consuming, and yes, you need a transitional agreement. If you look in the Parliament resolution, you say we want to have the bill on the divorce, and then, but also negotiate a future relation. What does it look like? That is the basis for the transitional agreement.
But
There's
Paul,
nothing spectacular in that resolution that's constructive.
But Paul, can I ask, one of the biggest issues in all trade agreements, I'm sure we'll accept, is the non-tariff kind of barriers that are in there, which is the regulations of the EU. And what Theresa May has said is in the Great Reform Bill, they will bring into UK law all the rules and regulations that we're currently applying. So wouldn't that actually help speed up any negotiations, because we've already gone through the non-tariff barrier aspect, which they didn't have in Canada.
Absolutely. So that you're absolutely right. That's why I say UK is taking a step into the past, because in the future trade relations, it's not about tariffs as it used to be, let's say the 20% on cucumbers. No, it's about product standards. But that requires regulation, and regulation requires some sort of legal certainty. But the UK doesn't accept anymore the European Court of Justice. So there you go. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Right? So either you accept some supranational arbitrage, and if you don't, then you don't have a very good trade agreement on product standards.
I mean, just in terms of, we're talking obviously about the future, but we've got 2 elections coming up, French and German elections. Am I right, Marco, am I right in thinking that nothing really substantial is going to be happening until those elections have completed?
Probably. I mean, there is a lot of uncertainty about the result of those elections of the 2 most important countries in the European Union and in the Eurozone. So I think that Mr. Barnier is setting up the general framework for the negotiation, but the last word will be agreed with those 2 important governments. It's clear that the debate will be conducted more in depth after the very important general election that we will have in Europe between 2017 and 2018. We have also probably general election in Italy by spring 2018. So it's clear that if there will be a change in a government in France, or in Germany or in Italy, this will affect the negotiations on Brexit. That's clear. The political component of the Brexit dialogue and of the Brexit talks is very important. So there are different political views on Brexit. It's not just about trade, about security, about migration, but it's also about politics. The treatment that the Brexit is delivering to the European Union is that if UK will demonstrate that outside the Euro and outside the European Union you will perform better, that's probably the end of the European Union.
Okay.
So that's the problem.